Hello, my wonderful friends, my esteemed colleagues, my fantastic family. I know I really went over the top for the intro on this one. Either way, I have a story for you. Oh, yes, I do. This is from Reddit user Prestigious86. Again, I really like your name. This is Bridezilla, amorous beginnings of the poly kind. I have literally no idea what we're going to get into in this one, and that's my favorite kind of story. So, let's just begin, shall we? Tuck in, everyone. This may get weird. Strangers from the distant corners of the internet, friends of the celestial herd, you've been summoned here to answer the call of Moonhorse. I called you? I don't remember calling you. I probably called you. Forgive me if I take a break from the Queen of Foxes for a moment, as the next installment is going to be quite the amalgamation, and it'll take a bit to type up in its full glory, and I need to get some Bridezilla craziness off my chest, as she's gone from generic unpleasantness about her perfect day into full-on crazy town at the speed of a psychotic horse galloping towards a burning stable. There's a lot to unpack in that, and I'm already just, okay. Here we go. I thought that if anyone knows anything about crazy equestrians, it would be Moonhorse. Everyone's favorite space unicorn, because there can indeed be only one. That's true. There is only one. And if anyone tells you otherwise, if anyone says they know of another space horse, they are a liar. It's only me. Out here. On the moon where it gets really, really quiet. And really dark. You can see for miles. I'm sorry, what were we saying? This story, like so many, requires a little background. So a friend who I will call Megan is the Bridezilla of this tale. For the most part, she's the sweetest and most adorable spaz you'll ever come across. That is, when her anxiety is not getting the best of her. I know generalized anxiety disorder is sadly on the rise in our society, and while I may be considered a bit intensive for this, I also think that while your mental health is not your fault, it is your responsibility, and Megan is not always good about taking responsibility. I can kind of agree with that. As someone who definitely has a couple of issues, the one that most of you know about is my depression. I also know that the terrible things that have happened around and because of my depression are something that I need to work on. I realized that I was not in the right frame of mind when it did happen, but I also realized that it is me who did it, so therefore I have to take care of it. Now to introduce Will. Will and I had known each other for years, being my old roommate of many years, a close friend and confidant. Will does have a few needs of his own, suffering from epilepsy and depression, and while Will is most likely the most book-smart person I know, he is sorely lacking in the common sense department. For example, I'll relate the story of the pickled coffee. Everything about those three words makes me incredibly uncomfortable. Please continue. Will is a heavy coffee drinker, as am I, and when the poor coffee maker is put to such strenuous use, it needs to be cleaned on a regular basis, lest the whole kitchen start to smell the regret of a night spent at the bar, waking up to a hangover rather than a pleasant acquaintance. So, going the old-fashioned route, I poured some white vinegar into the reservoir in the coffee maker and set it to brew. Well, it turns out that Will saw me doing this and thought I was making a regular pot of coffee and thought I had forgotten to put the coffee in the filter in. Oh no, I think I already know where this is going. So, not taking into account the strong smell of vinegar, put coffee in a filter, and 5 minutes later I heard him sputter and gag as he spit out the pickled coffee. Yeah, that'll do it. That'll definitely do it. When Megan and Will started dating, it seemed like an odd match to me, but in the end, they seemed to be good for each other. Megan, while not good with emotional work, was good at being financially responsible, and Will had high emotional intelligence to go with his book smarts. Together, they made one adult. Now, because it is relevant to the story, Megan and Will are both bisexual, polyamorous, and part of the Kink community. All three of which are perfectly fine, of course. I don't imagine Uncle Moonhorse would allow any small-minded assholes in his space station. I am bisexual, I'm not really into the whole poly thing, and I understand there is a kink community. I just, I don't get the other two. I understand being bisexual, but I don't really get the other two. There's nothing wrong with them. I just personally, I don't get it. But if it makes you happy, more power to you. Just as long as you're not hurting anybody. But if you are hurting somebody, seriously, fuck you. But as things so very often are, it got complicated. Will and Megan both began to date Felicity, and all began to live together. I didn't know about their happy triad until Megan asked me to be a bridesmaid for their wedding. Megan and Will were to be legally married, and they would have a commitment ceremony with all three of them. To make a long story short, I at first had to refuse because Will was still friends with a person that ran a group that I was part of in the Ren Fair. To continue to make a long story short, I was still healing from my past traumas and making progress when I came into this group. I was getting better about setting boundaries and spotting manipulative people, but the guy who ran the group, which was a sword fighting one, was better at manipulation than the first scumbag I ran into in high school, and even with the slow progress I was making, I was still vulnerable to it, and that kind of asshole could see it too. I don't like where this is going. So for 5 years, I suffered through more bullshit, all of which Will was a witness to as my roommate. Maybe not the stuff that went on behind closed doors, because it was insisted that stuff like that be kept on the DL, as not to not think that there were favorites in the group. And that wouldn't be exposed for the abuse that it was. But enough to see my personality change and my hair start to turn white, while I doubled over with ulcers. Oh, yeah, that's not good at all. I do not mention this for sympathy about being stuck in the abuse cycle, but to give context for this and other elements in the story. Will tried to convince me that Scumbag 2.0 was a changed person, and that's why he was still friends with him. Even if that was indeed true, then bully for him. He could go and be a decent human being away from me. Eventually, Will and Megan decided to take Scumbag 2.0 out of the wedding so I could be her bridesmaid. It was a long road with me putting up a lot of crying and going sorry but boundaries. It was a prelude of things to come. A few months later, I noticed Megan had posted a few strange statuses on Facebook about pain and hurt and someone leaving. Being at work at the time, I couldn't give a lot of time to it until I got home, and Megan herself called me up. Will had packed his things in the middle of the night and pieced out back to his parents. Oh boy. I had her and Felicity come over to my house so they could have company and hear what happened. There's a lot of setup to all this, and Will's mother was a starting catalyst for all of it, as she can frankly be a twat about some things. Cliché mother-in-law drama, which I'm pretty inclined to believe, because I was Will's roommate for years, and one of the reasons we never hooked up was because I knew anyone who married Will would also be marrying his mother. The real censure was that Will's epilepsy had taken a turn for the worst a few days prior. He had a grand mal seizure that resulted in him hitting his head and resulting in brain trauma from both the seizure and the fall. Jeez. Megan said that there was a personality change in Will after that, and I'm not surprised, but nor can I blame or be angry at Will because a traumatic brain injury is not exactly something you shake off. Yeah, that's very true. Shit, dude. I've been in contact with Will off and on in the usual casual way of friends chat. I haven't heard his side of the story yet, but I would be interested in hearing it. But to get to the rest of the story, since Megan and Felicity were going to be committed anyway, they kept their original date for the wedding, but the groom had changed to another bride, and I had been promoted to maid of honor, which honestly seemed eminently practical to my mind, but I also didn't take the process of grieving into account, nor how much it would affect everything. Our first official meeting with the wedding coordinator began everything. It started out with Megan's ring. She decided to keep the ring that Will had given her. It was a custom job that is very pretty, but I advised her to get a different one and to send the old one back to Will. Megan at first said that she didn't want a different ring and that Felicity couldn't afford one. I did my best to direct her to different Etsy pages that do gorgeous rings for reasonable prices, $50 to $75. And you can get a beautiful moonstone or other semi-precious gem ring in silver or gold. But besides that, who needs fancy jewelry when you've got love? Cliche and soppy, but that's how I felt with the $25 silver and green amber ring my husband gave me. I mean, no, you're absolutely right. The ring I got for Sango is not like a super fancy or super expensive one, but I did specifically seek it out to match the one that I wear. I have a silver ring that I wear all the time. It's just, I don't know, part of what I usually wear, and she wanted one exactly like it, so I went to the Ren Fair and found her one that was exactly like it in her size. There's no jewels in it, but it means more to both of us than any fancy, expensive ring. So, yeah, no, I agree with you. It's really about, the emotion behind it rather than the pointless jewelry. The coordinator, who is a mutual friend of both of us, Angie, agreed with me. As a professional wedding and event planner, something she is doing pro bono, by the way, a service that would run anywhere from $3,500 to $5,000 normally, she knows the ins and outs and the legalities of weddings. In our state, if an engagement is called off, the ring legally belongs to whoever originally gave it. To avoid any legal stress, Angie and myself highly recommended returning the ring to Will. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. While she assured us that Will said that he didn't want it back, she didn't have it in notarized writing, another recommendation of Angie's, and I agreed with her. Even if Will did not do anything, his mother very well might. I also told her that she would be starting her new commitment with a broken promise, which is just bad vibes all around. Yeah, big time. Now, because all of us are some flavor of pagan, though I go with a more practical bent on it, and I can't stand the magic spelled with a K, magic, it's spelled like that. To me, is someone playing at spells and crystals and trying to deal with things that should be talked out with a therapist, not a tarot deck. But I'm more than a bit of a cynical witch, full pun intended. I actually like your approach. That sounds really smart. Megan asked if there was some kind of ritual I could do to purify / whatever she thought might make it better. I was frank with her and told her no, because there wasn't anything metaphysical to be done to make it better, as that was a kind of emotional need that needs to be worked out either with herself or a qualified counselor, not tinkly-winkly magic. See my previous rant and dealings with the Queen of Foxes. All this time while we're going over the legalities of everything, Megan used the big innocent eyes and the "I don't understand" line and voice. When that didn't work, she started on the defensive breakdown, anxiously saying that she felt like we were trying to push her to do something that she didn't want to do. We tried to assure her that it was not that. We were trying to save her grief because of our mutual experience and give her advice, which she asked for in the first place. To make a long story short, this is how most of the rest of the meeting went. We would try to give advice and opinions. Angie is also a talented tailor at making Megan's dress, but if something wasn't exactly what Megan wanted because it wasn't feasible or not on her budget, she would start throwing a bit of a tantrum. For example, trying to explain that alcohol and drinks are some of the more expensive things on a wedding dinner, and that she needed to dial back some of her ideas, like the one of having 2 specialty cocktails, one representing her and the other representing Felicity. That took nearly 45 minutes of explaining that she would either need more money in the budget or drop that idea, while she twisted and turned and wriggled and writhed and indeed gave the big eyes of "I don't understand" and "this is setting off my anxiety," before we were finally able to move on. Yeah, dude, I can't believe I have to say this, but booze is expensive, just in general. That's usually how that runs. There were several other events and items that went on like this. From color to cake, it was a long night. The climax of which was about an on-site cabin that Megan intended for us to stay in. I figured staying in an on-site cabin the night before would be plenty of fun and practical as to cut down on the amount of driving needed. But the linchpin was Megan had planned this out and made the reservation without consulting any bridal party, who were expected to pay a share of the cost of staying there over the weekend. Something to the tune of about $200. Mind you, I was already donating $400 worth of lamb to her reception, my dad being a sheep farmer, and as a wedding gift I had bought all of the materials for her dress and mock-up, as it was a custom job being done by Angie, since they are having an Elven/LOTR themed wedding. That does sound really pretty, but it also sounds incredibly expensive. Angie is on disability, having suffered through cancer 3 times and a stroke by the time she was 40. Jeez. So, $200 is not a minor thing to her. Yeah, I imagine. Fuck, dude. Besides the money, I took note that she had said the whole weekend, as in she planned to have the bridal party staying in the cabin on their wedding night. I said flat out that I did not want to stay for the wedding night, as not only did I need to get home, myself and my husband would be deeply uncomfortable staying and inadvertently hearing their wedding night. Yeah, that's weird. Megan chirped up with, "But why not?" Look, exhibition is a turn-on of Megan's kinks. As mentioned before, she, Felicity, and Angie are all part of the kink community. I have nothing against kink, but my husband has a paranoia about being watched or overhearing intimate times. Not tinfoil hat kind of paranoia, it's just one of his things, and overhearing people being intimate is downright triggering to me. I don't think there's anything uncomfortable about that. I can kind of agree. Like, look, I'm all sex positive and, you can do you and whatever. I don't need to be a part of it. That's my one line. It's just like, I'm totally fine if this is your thing. It's not mine, and please don't make me a part of it. Forcing your kinks onto unwitting strangers, or even your friends who are just not comfortable with it, kind of fucked up, bro. Kind of fucked up. Megan wouldn't let the damn subject go of just why I didn't like the inadvertent voyeurism till I finally had to remind her about Scumbag 2.0. A story she knew of, by the by. To keep it simple, it involved no aftercare, being tossed my clothes and being told to get out while they had round two. That I would have to listen as they were the, quote, real couple. Real fucking classy of those two, isn't it? Adding to the blood-boiling rage of this is that I knew it wasn't right, but I still didn't leave because I felt like I wasn't going to get any affection anywhere else. What I didn't know at the time was that Scumbag 2.0 and his wife were keeping me isolated and gaslighting me. If anyone showed any interest in me and was starting to go somewhere, SB 2.0 would approach them without my knowledge and then threaten them, and then suddenly they would lose interest in me, so I felt like there was something wrong with me, so I had better just take what was thrown my way. Wow, this guy sounds like a fucking dick. There's absolutely no way someone does that unknowingly, so when SB 2.0 tried this one particular guy, that guy came to me and told me what was going on. That guy is now my absolute hero of a husband and amazing father of our child. He sounds like a fucking cool dude. The fact that I had to remind Megan of this was pushing me to a blow-up, and Angie swooped in and managed to put the kibosh on the conversation that had spiraled into defending why I'm not into a certain kink, and Megan saying I was kink-shaming oh my fucking god, them, and Megan was not letting it go till I either agreed to stay or started throwing something. Okay. Angie, also being kinky, reminded Megan that no kink shaming also means no vanilla shaming. I'm gonna go ahead and put this out there. That little thing where it's like, we want everybody to stay. It's like, okay, I understand that you're kink, but I'm not into it, so I don't really want to be a part of it. And then insisting that you do need to be a part of it, that's not kink shaming. That's them trying to push a kink onto you, which I'm sure they very well knew, which is bullshit. You don't get to do that. Just because that's your thing doesn't mean it's everybody else's thing, and this idea of you forcing somebody else into your thing makes you a fucking asshole. Just saying. Angie herself was very pissed at the whole thing, as Megan's bulldozing went against a fundamental testament of kink where consent is king above all else. Thank you. I even double-checked on a BDSM advice subreddit, and everyone agreed not being into a kink is not kink-shaming, and Megan trying to wheedle me into staying was seriously fucked up. Thank you, yes. And Angie stated this to me as well, because no is a complete sentence, and it should have been enough without me going into my story. Yes, fucking thank you. Absolutely. After the first meeting, which was the beginning of the year, things went quiet for a bit because the wedding is at the end of May. But now, with the spring approaching, more shit is flying because Angie and I are both locked into this thing. We will be there for each other to get each other through, but I'm more than certain we'll be severing ties with Megan after all this is done. Thanks for letting me get this off my chest, Uncle Moonhorse. If anyone would like to hear more Bridezilla, there are plenty more where that came from. Well, as I say to everybody who ever sends me a story, you are more than welcome to express yourself to myself and this community, and don't ever feel like you have to hold back. As for what you were describing with this Bridezilla, yeah, no, I'm 100% with you on this. That is pretty fucked up. And I'm going to just go ahead and put this out there, just for everybody in general. But even if you had not gone through the horrible experiences that you did with both the scumbag losers, that is still not an okay thing to do of what she was doing to you. Megan knows that your answer is no, you're not into this. Forcing someone else into it, basically whining and complaining and pushing and prodding and trying to force someone into something, is fucking wrong. Period. And Angie is right. No is a complete sentence. So, even if you had never had those experiences, that's still royally fucked up that she was trying to make you do something you were deeply uncomfortable with in general. Now, bring both of those experiences back in, and it's 4 times the fucked up. Especially considering she knew. You know better than that shit, man. You know that this is something that'll make your friend, someone you supposedly care about, uncomfortable. You went through something horrible by, the end of a relationship with someone you care about, and this person, this wonderful human being, comforts you and your fiance to make sure everything in your life is okay, to make sure that you're okay, to make sure that while this is horrible and it's extra terrible because it's like there's really literally nothing you can do at this stage, you choose to not just take that and then ignore it, but to take that compassion and then abuse it. That's fucked, dude. That's royally fucked. And again, I understand the anxiety. I understand the issues with stuff like that. As I said earlier, I am a person who has had issues with depression for years, like literal years. But I am also completely aware that despite the fact that I may be suffering with some kind of depressive episode, I am still a person, and my actions have consequences. So, while I may do or say something that's kind of fucked up while I am depressed, I will always come back and apologize and work to make it better. Because I'm still a person, and not everybody has this mental illness, which means they will not always understand. Sometimes you just have to square up and take it. Make it fucking work. Be an adult and take care of shit. What she's doing is basically trying to get her way, and then more than that. There's a lot of shit, I'll give you consensus, whenever it comes to, like, weddings and stuff. There's a lot of, things. But forcing someone else into your kink? No. I don't care who the fuck you're marrying. The answer is no. You don't get to do that. Ever. Because that is a separate human being, and you do not own them. Period. I am incredibly sorry that you had to go through this, OP. That is really fucked, and I know that as the date approaches, it's probably going to get crazier, and you'll probably want to talk more, and if you do, we're all here to listen, and we'll do our best, no matter what, to help you. But I can totally understand not wanting to be around somebody anymore after this experience. That is fucked up, and you shouldn't have to deal with that. And that kind of goes for all of you, too. If you're ever in a situation where something like that happens, that's fucked. And you do not have to put up with it. It doesn't matter if this is someone you've only been dating for like a couple months, or if it's someone you've been married to for years. You may not be 100% compatible, and that's okay. And if it's something that makes you uncomfortable and you don't want to do it and you don't want to try it and these things just really put you off, you are not obligated to do that, and you can say no. Just always remember that you are a person, no is a complete sentence, and no one can tell you to do anything with your body that you don't want to. You are an individual, and you have that right. Period. I love you all so very, very much, and do take care of yourselves out there. It's a wild and crazy world we live in, kids. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.